Pow. Should be good. Let's check my audio. How's this look? How's it going, guys? How's your 2024 been? Splendid.
Pretty good so far.
Pretty good.
Nice.
New Year, send me.
New Year, same you. I feel you, dog. I feel you, man. All right. Cool. Just got the thumbs up on the audio. Let's get started. So, welcome, guys. Welcome back. So this is going to be the first stream of the year. This is, we're just continuing off where we left off last year, right? So, but there are going to be some changes. I'm going to kind of walk through some of the ideas, I guess some of the things that I've kind of been working on to kind of make this, I guess, a little more engaging, a little bit more, just something to kind of do. So, with that in mind, just want to kind of preface, I am a little sick right now. I've been sick for the last couple of days, so it sounds like I'm coughing or chewing on a cough drop. I am, so, and then if I sound kind of nasally, it is what it is. So, but yeah, hopefully it's not too distracting. If it does get kind of bad, I'll end it early. But we'll see how it goes, right? Speaking of which, but let's talk about some stuff. So this year, right, we're going to be doing something a little bit different, right? Every month, right? If you haven't seen the schedule, well, if you're not part of the Digital Vegetables Discord, please join that. Definitely, you kind of get updated on everything, and you're kind of a little more in the loop, right? You can just, show up whenever, but you know what I mean. It's a little cooler if you're like in the channel. You know what I'm saying? But there's a schedule that I kind of have now. So I made this really cool schedule. I don't know if it's really cool, but it is a schedule. And so every month, right, every week, we're going to have a different topic or different thing that lines up with the overall theme of the month, right? So for this January, we're going to start off pretty simple, just doing some prop design, right? Keep it pretty chill and kind of break down every step that I would kind of do as I'm going through the process, as I would go through the process in a professional setting, right? Hopefully, by the end of this, you're going to come out of every month, right? If you're following along, hopefully you're coming out of this with a, hopefully a good painting or a portfolio piece coming out of it, right? If you'd like feedback on that, right? I do have a new kind of system that I'm kind of working on. It's the Livestream Plus role in my Discord. You'd have to be part of the Discord to be a part of that. It is a subscription that you would pay for in the server shop in my Discord. But basically, what you're going to get is feedback on all of the assignments that we do, right, every single week, and you get your own private live stream. Some of us actually just left that like 10 minutes ago. It's recorded and everything, so even if you can't make it to the actual time that we stream, you'll be able to see it whenever you get around to it. It is private, so it's only going to be for the people that are part of that subscription. Basically, it's just like a class. So if you do the homework, you want some feedback, it's a great place to kind of get some eyes and some people that are kind of working on the same general thing as well. I'm going to be kind of going through each week in the order that I kind of talk about it in my schedule, but. For you, it's mostly going to be about kind of like moving at your own speed. So if you are like, I guess a little more advanced, you can just start running, right? I am going to talk about some things that you're going to want to keep in mind every single week as we're getting through it. And I doubt you'll be kind of running faster than what I'm expecting for that week, but it is really a self-paced. So by the end of the month, you should have something that would, hopefully resemble a portfolio piece for that topic. And then the best part is every month on the 15th, right, you're going to be able to vote on whatever the next topic is. I picked this first one, prop design, kept it pretty chill. But on the 15th, in what, 6 days from now, you're going to be able to pick from a kind of list of topics like keyframe design, color keys, whatever it is, whatever that group kind of wants to do. But you have to be part of the Livestream Plus to do that, right? So if you're just part of the normal live stream, you can still participate, still ask questions, just like usual. You can still watch me demo, just like usual. But the feedback and I guess the class setting aspects are going to be in that Livestream Plus role. So if you are looking for that, join that in the server shop in my Discord. But yeah, so cool. With that in mind, let's get started. Sorry, I've been sick for like the last 5 days, so it's been this is like the first time I've been out of bed for since Thursday. So it is what it is. Let's see. Let me quit that. Don't say. All right, guys. So I'm gonna kind of start just kind of talking about references. So this week, right? Or this month, we're going to be doing a prop design. I'm going to be continuing off where I left off, and I'm kind of show you where I did leave off, right? Just as as we're kind of getting started, as people are kind of rolling in, I'll kind of show you where I left off last episode, I guess, right? So I did this buggy painting, right? Pretty cool. I mean, it's subjective, I guess, right? But overall, it's a thing that I did that you saw me do. I did basically most of it on stream. Obviously, there was details and stuff that I did off stream, but hopefully it was pretty self-explanatory as how I got to certain ideas, right? So I did these two paintings within in that last month. This was a full model. This is from a 2D process, and for this first month, right, I'm gonna be creating another prop for this world, and it's going to be the camera, right? So I was talking about how this is this was a loosely, very, very, very loosely based off of Pokemon Snap, right? Oops, hold up, I'm not streaming in the Discord. Thanks, Riley. Oops, share screens. Go live. There you go. Should be much better. Sorry about that, guys. So this is very loosely based off of the Pokemon Snap kind of idea, right? Just kind of using it as a base framework, but not really keeping it much from there, right? And if you know, it's basically a wildlife photography type game, right? So in this case, I need a camera. Right, so that's what I'm going to be designing for the next month-ish. I'm going to take the steps a little bit slower, right? I think what I noticed this past I guess couple weeks that we were designing, there are some steps that I was kind of breezing through, and then you'd kind of lose some people, or they weren't quite catching some of the things that were being said. So I'm going to kind of emphasize some of the more important steps during those weeks. And hopefully, we can kind of look at it and kind of see what I feel is one of the more important things to kind of think about as we're kind of running, right? So, with that in mind, just kind of looking back at some of the stuff. This looks cool. I'm decently happy with how they turned out. I'd love to kind of do more on it. So I'm gonna kind of do a closer kind of prop, right? Because we have a wide shot. Right, and then we have a medium-ish sized prop, right, and then I want to do a kind of small close-up prop just to kind of give us, I guess, that wide, medium, close-up feel of a vertical slice of this world, right? And it all starts with reference, right? This is going to be the theme of this week is reference and why it's so damn important, right? I think some of the bigger things, especially because whenever I teach classes and whenever I'm kind of talking with students, reference is always, I guess, kind of breezed by so quickly. You know what I mean? It's always kind of an afterthought. They're always I'm always oh, do you have reference? I was no. I was oh, I kind of had something, but I wasn't really. I just kind of found something real quick. And half the time they kind of find it after the fact. They don't know I know that, but surprise. I know that. But if you want to know the truth, right? If you want to know the truth about reference, it's like getting good at reference is the fastest way to get to being an art director, right? To be at a higher level artist. And it sounds funny. It sounds like, it's like, why would finding pictures online be the way that, like, what I need to get good at to move into those higher levels of art, right? It sounds funny because you'd imagine, like, because when I first started, it was a lot of like, you're kind of, I guess, I don't know, maybe I was just stupid, who knows? But like, whenever I first started, right, I always thought when you first start, you're not really good at drawing and painting. Cool. So you start as a junior, right? And you get better at drawing and painting, and you get to a higher level, right? You're like better at drawing and painting, and you jump up more and more. And to get to the art director level or, higher, you're supposed to be the best person that draws and paints, right? That's the idea, or whenever I first started, right? But that's actually not the case. For those that don't know, right? It really is the ability to understand reference gathering and what the importance is that really really separates you from senior to art director, right? Because once you get to those higher levels, it's actually not you that, I guess, draws and paints anymore, right? Not as much, right? Your art director will still be drawing and painting, but their skill, right? The value of your art director or your leads is valuable because of their vision, right? Their ability to guide the team, to guide the artists, to guide whoever to the vision that is needed to, by the client or whoever, right? And so they don't have the time or capacity to be able to do every single painting because, if they did it all, then that wouldn't leave anything for us, right? The normal artists, the senior, middle, the principals, and the juniors, right? So their job, generally speaking, is really gathering reference, especially some of the better art directors, right? And it's because they need to show you what they're thinking without actually having to paint it because you're the one that's supposed to be painting it, right? So I get this a lot, especially in the first like couple weeks. There's a lot of like, like I always go, hey, what's your reference? And they're like, oh, I just kind of found this thing, or I just did this, like, I'm just kind of like, basically you just kind of like found something, right? And it's cool, right? To like, just kind of get into the painting as soon as you can, right? Because we're always kind of rush, right? Where like if you're in a class or if you're on an assignment for work, you're usually like, oh, I don't know how I'm going to do all this in the time that I've been given. So you're like, I got to start painting as soon as possible, right? And usually it's I'm trying to rush through it. I'll just kind of find it as I go, right? And that means you're really not thinking through the idea that much. Because when I first started, it was basically like if I split my entire time up, it was like maybe 10% of my time was reference gathering, and then 90% of the time actually drawing and painting. And then now, like I guess my time is split into like 50% reference gathering and 50%, shit, maybe even like 30% actually painting, right? Because if you've taken my class before, if you've seen me work, I can have a painting done within 2 hours, right? You're not done, but like, a representable concept or something that's understandable, right? Within the time span of a demo, right? But if I'm given a full day, then I'm probably reference gathering up until about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, starting at like 9 o'clock, right? 9-10 o'clock when the day starts. I'm reference gathering till then. And then from like 2 to 6, I'm like actually painting, right? And that happened because whenever I started painting, I was really having trouble like figuring out like, well, what am I actually painting? What am I designing? What am I trying to say? And as I got better, my confidence, the confidence in my ability to paint I was like, I know how to do this. I know what a mountain looks like. I know what a castle looks like. I can do all those things. But what is this actually saying? you know, and then I had to spend more time reference gathering, and your ideas get better, right? And then if you ever interacted with an art director before, sometimes they'll be like, here's a reference board. Here's the pieces. It's like basically a unassembled manuscript of like, hey, a blueprint of like what this image is going to look like. I want this lighting. I want this sketch. I want these characters. I want these props, you know, and it's just kind of like circled and like put in there. And then just like, here, do it. Right. That's if you're getting like a lot, like really handheld. If you're like a more of a junior artist, you're kind of looking at that. Right. For a more senior level artist, right, they won't do a lot of that hand holding, and you kind of need to start doing that reference gathering for yourself, right? So all this to say, reference gathering is fucking important. Like, I can't stress it enough. If you ever feel like you're spending too much time reference gathering, you're probably not gathering enough, just as a heads up. So with that in mind, let's talk about what I did. So I just have a bunch of folders right now. I'll show you how I organize it probably next week. But we're gonna kind of keep it kind of chill today. I'm gonna kind of show you how I kind of go about like my first initial steps. This is probably the first couple hours of my day, right? Like let's say I just got launched on a project. You know, whether I just started on a team or just got a new client, whatever it is, right? And they're like, hey, we have this design. I need you to design a camera for this game. You know, just assuming they give me an assignment that's like, you know, like the project that I've been doing, right? This make-believe client with this make-believe assignment. So I have this folder here. This is called reference, right? I have three different folders right now. This would be like probably like 6 to 7 different folders in a second. But for now, I just kind of quickly gathered some things just to kind of show you what I'd start looking at, right? So the first thing is I was looking at a camera that would fit inside this scope, right? And I was sitting there thinking about it, and it actually took me a while. And it took me like 2 or 3 weeks before I was like, oh yeah, this would be kind of cool. So if you remember correctly, I'll go back to my thing real quick. Here, I'll show you. Nope, this one. Boom. Boom. Pow. There we go. All right, so we did this painting, right? This was the first painting I did, and then we kind of did some other paintings, and then we kind of came back to it. Basically, the idea was these spirits kind of came back after, 100 years later, and they kind of like possessed some of these like old machines and stuff, and they kind of came alive, and they're kind of like these sentient creature type things made of like old machinery, right? So all of this equipment was from like 100 years ago. This is like parts of tanks, parts of like anti-air stuff. You know what I mean? So that's the whole premise there. And I was like, oh wait, what if I had one of the props being possessed, just like this thing, but it's a camera, right? So I was looking around for old cameras, and there's this Canon camera, very specifically the Canon Hansa, which is this one right here. This one was made in 1939 or something like that. Is within that time frame. And I was like, oh, what if this was like the camera that his grandpa or something handed down to him, and it's all broken and stuff. But then a spirit kind of comes down and, kind of inhabits this thing, and it kind of pulls it back together, and it actually works again. And this is the thing that you're using to kind of drive around and take pictures, right? Like that'd be kind of fun, right? Because it kind of makes this prop, right? Because especially in a game like this isn't just going to be a prop. This is like a sidekick. This is a character, right? If you guys have ever played Shadow of the Colossus, like it's not just a horse, you know what I mean? It's a partner, it's a character, it's part of the game. So whenever you're designing a lot of these things, there's a certain level of importance that you want to kind of bring into some of these props. If it's like a barrel, cool, right? If it's a crate or whatever, that's fine. But this is the main thing that you're going to be interacting with the entire game, and just kind of giving it that little bit of importance, right? So I was like, oh, what if it was this 100-year-old camera that was maybe on a shelf or something, and then the spirit kind of comes down and possesses it, and it starts working again, right, with the assistance of this spirit or whatever, and he's kind of like your partner the whole way through, right? So now we're thinking old camera, possessed by spirit, right? But it's like a good one. It's not like one that's trying to kill you or anything, unlike the other ones or whatever, right? So that's the first thing I thought of, and I started looking at cameras that kind of fit that bill. And this was this is the first camera that Canon built, and it's funny too because it's a Nikon lens. If you guys understand that those are two different companies, but anyway, so I just started looking up some of those lenses, or so looking up some of those cameras, and then just started trying to just finding references of things that I wanted to kind of see. And this is a different camera, but it's around the same time period. And I'm just trying to gather reference as to what some of the different things are. Because whenever you're looking at reference, there's certain things that you want to kind of know about it, right? You can't just look at it and be like, oh, that's cool, and then move on. You have to study it, because there's different things that you have to like pick up about it. Because if this is a reference that's given to you by somebody, then you really need to know, like, hey, what's that do? You know, what's that thing? Because it could be pretty important. And I'll explain more of that in a second. But this is that kind of first reference I found, right? And then in the game, if you ever played the latest Pokemon games, there's a phone in this kind of universe. I guess in the last like probably couple generations, there's this Pokemon called Rotom, right? It's this electric ghost type. Basically, it possesses electronic equipment, right? And I was like, oh, yeah, that'd be kind of cool. And I was just trying to maybe using that premise where, because in the game, when you first meet him, he possesses these things, right? It's like a washer, a fridge, an oven, a fan, and a lawnmower, right? It's like different types. Anyway, I was like, oh, that'd be kind of cool, because then you're actually bringing back the themes of like the ideas that the game is actually using, right? Because now it's like true to form. Like, oh yeah, that's probably what happened, right? And so I was like, oh, okay, cool. We have a spirit, right? Or a thing that's possessing this other thing. So it works. It falls in line. And then now I started looking up other references, right? I started looking up other times that in media that we had, I guess, objects that were, I guess, turned into like a character, right? What is it, anthropomorphized, right? Like Monster House. You got Beauty and the Beast, right? In Japanese folklore, there's these yokai that like possess like objects. Like this is like a teacup or tea kettle. Monster House, right? These are I think this is a Canon Transformers I guess mashup, and they turned the Canon R5 into Optimus, which is pretty cool. But little things like this, because you can kind of see how they characterized these things, these inanimate objects. And I have these snakes here because this was so cool. So if you guys don't know what a snake is, I don't know why you wouldn't, but if you don't know what a snake is, it doesn't really have arms or legs or a body, or it has just a body, but it's just like long, right? You know what a snake is. I don't need to explain this to anybody. But looking at this, you get this really cool thing where these animators, they need the snake to emote. They need it to do things. It needs body language, right? Because in animation, there's movement, there's things that happen. And when you actually look at this, these snakes, he's like covering his mouth. You know what I mean? He's like, or like this snake here, his arms are kind of like hanging over the side of the basket, and he's kind of like laying his head down, right, on his arms. Snakes don't have arms. Surprise, right? And this one here as well is like, he's kind of leaning against the table and his arms are kind of back. You know what I mean? He's all like cool looking, but it's all with just his body. And I was thinking, oh, wouldn't that be really cool to kind of see that characterization through like the camera strap or something, right? And so using these references to kind of inform my character or my prop, it's really going to go a long way. And it's like trying to find these little instances, like what, how did they create characters out of objects before in popular media that we've had, right? References that we know about. And then what are other ways that they use, other things that they use to emote? Because I have a camera that has a camera strap on it. And I was like, oh, maybe I can use that camera strap to then further emote and create character based off of this thing. So, this is kind of things that I was thinking about as I was just like kind of pondering the idea, but it takes a while to kind of get there. Cause at first I was like, oh, maybe I can just like put a face on there. It's like, oh, that's lame. You know what I mean? It's like the first kind of idea that happens, but generally speaking, it's very much like, it's really not that good. You know what I mean? And the reason I'm really spending a lot of time on this is because this part right here, this formation of idea is so important. It's everything. If you don't really spend time thinking, it really doesn't matter what you paint. And it's gonna be a lot of wasted effort because, I've done this before where like, I'll get an assignment and, you have like, oh, they're like, hey, we need something by the end of the day. Great. It's like noon, but sure, dude, whatever. And then I'll do something and I kind of won't even think about it, but I'll just kind of just rush through it. I'll do the painting and I can finish a painting within that time. But the issue is the idea doesn't work. It doesn't even matter how good the painting is. If the idea doesn't work, it doesn't work. And it'll get shot down and you're kind of just wasting time at that point. But if you turn in like a loose sketch with a solid idea, dude, it's everything, right? And so I really want to put emphasis on this first week, right? Whenever you're trying to design out your props or design out anything really, have a strong idea before you move in, before you start really like, I guess, before you really start to, start drawing, right? Because it's important. If you don't have an idea, it really doesn't matter what you're drawing, right? So in this case, I'm gonna kind of start doing studies, right? We're gonna keep things pretty chill today. I'm going to just painting one of these, and this is something that I do a lot. If I'm ever jumping onto a project, I'll just start doing sketches, start doing studies, start researching, watching movies, doing whatever, because it's important, right? It's important that you understand the little nuances of what it is that you're trying to design, right? If you ever like, that that idea of like when people are like, oh, hey, can you draw an owl from memory? Dude, like that thing would look like a chicken. Like, I don't even know, dude. Like it just wouldn't look that good. But if you gave me reference, yeah, it's gonna look like the best damn owl you've ever seen, right? But that's the difference, right? It's really knowing what those subtle, very in-depth differences are that really makes a huge difference when it comes to art. Because if you ever watched a movie, if you're a fan of anything, if you have any hobbies, if you ever like enjoy things outside of art, and you ever like, play a game that has a gun in it, and you're like, oh, that gun doesn't belong there. You're playing Call of Duty or something, and you're like, oh, that's a World War II gun. This is a World War I game, or whatever, right? Right? And that's who we're designing for at the end of the day. If you're designing a photography game, it's probably for photographers, right? If you're designing a shooting game, it's probably for people that are gun enthusiasts. And so you really got to know these topics. Just like, so I was hired on to work at Netflix for Blue Eye Samurai. I watched like 10 to 20 samurai movies, right? The production designer just gave me a list. He's like, hey, this is what we're referencing. I was like, cool, let me go watch those movies real quick. And I did some drawings, I did some studies, and I just started looking up art, looking up things. And, it helps you design better. It helps create a more diverse library. This is studying for a purpose, so, but cool. All right, guys. So, as a quick explanation, right? Or I guess that wasn't even that quick. Just as an overall, right? We're basically going to be covering just reference gathering today and just doing studies. So, if you guys have any questions at all, just hit me up. I guess the floors are going to be open in a second to kind of talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. But yeah, so I'll kind of get my file set up if you guys have any questions at all. Let's see. What am I gonna paint? Should I paint one of these? Should I do a study of this one?
I'm still waiting for your hot take on a pure ref.
So we were in the private stream for the Livestream Plus members earlier at 6, and Tony had brought up that he was asking something about pure ref, and I told him that to basically, I don't say not use it, but that I was about to shit on it during the live stream, and I guess this is the time. So, for those of you that are a fan of pure ref, I'm sorry for what's about to be said. I don't know, it's not that bad, but like, just being like, I think first and foremost, I think pure ref is cool. You know, it's a really cool way to kind of organize, you know, your reference board, you know, quickly and all that, right? You know what I mean? Like, it's cool. But what I will say though is, I do think that if you're not I want to say an advanced level artist, but if you're like, if you don't know what you're doing, right? And when I say don't know what you're doing, like, I include like senior level artists in this, like not even like students. This is like more than you would imagine, right? More than you would think is necessary, right? I highly discourage using pure ref. The reason for that is because it kind of automates a lot of the organization for you, which is cool, right? It's like, yeah, if you guys don't know what pure ref is, it's a program that you can drop a bunch of references in there, and then it kind of like, you know, it organizes it out for you, which is great, right? Like why would that be a bad thing, right? And it's not inherently a bad thing, but it's bad the way people use it, because what it does is it makes a very intentional step, a very thought intensive process, and it kind of standardizes it, right? And the issue with that is, if you don't know what you're doing, you end up with a reference board that's full of every single reference that you have, right? And the issue with that is, if you don't know what you're looking at, if you don't know, like, you know, I guess, I don't know, if you don't know how to design a reference board accurately, right? Then I guess the pure ref board can ultimately be more confusing than anything, right? For those of you who have worked with clients, right, in a freelance capacity, or even in a studio, how many times have you gotten a reference board and you're looking at it and you're like, what the fuck is this person talking about? Like, what do they want? You know what I mean? It's like, you're looking at this thing and you're like, I don't know what they want out of this. I'm seeing like 100 images here. And it's like a lot of like, you know, just like there's a sunset here, there's like nighttime there, this is like there's sci-fi there, there's medieval there, it's like a castle, and then it's like a spaceship. You're like, what is this? You know what I mean? And oftentimes it's because this client is just responding to some images, right? They're just on Google, just searching things up, right? Same thing I'm doing here. Same thing that I'm looking at whenever I'm here. I'll show you. Boom, desktop. Same thing I'm doing here, right? I'm just finding images, because you would have to know this, and I haven't organized it yet because I'm going to talk about that next week. But you're looking at this reference packet here. I would never send this to somebody. Just know that. If I was in charge of art directing somebody, and I had to give them a reference board, this is not what I would send them, because there's two different cameras in here at the very least, right? There's this camera here, right, which is the Canon Hansa, which is the same as this one right here. So these two are the same. There's three are the same, right? And then there's this different camera here. This one's a little bit newer, but there's something about it that I do like. But it's not what you think it is, right? It's not the bottom half. It's actually this top half, right? And this is the issue, because whenever you get reference from a client, you actually don't know what they're responding to. You know what I mean? Because they're like, oh yeah, no, that's like, because let's say I was designing a camera, I designed it just like this one, right? According to my prompt. And I was like, oh, hey, I'm designing this camera, right? Because you put it in the reference board. It's in the references. It's like, oh no, but we wanted this camera. We just like that top section of this camera. You're like, well, why the fuck is it in the reference board? You know what I mean? And that's the biggest issue when it comes to pure ref, because usually what's going to happen is they're going to take all these images, especially like these lenses too. Like some of these lenses, like so these lenses on the right, they're a lot newer than some of these lenses on the left, right? Well, these don't fit with the timeline at all, right? And it's like, what am I looking at? Something very different. And I'll tell you about that later. But there's little things here. There's little nuggets of information that's like, I really like this camera body, the way that this is formatted, because this is the original first Canon camera from the late 1930s, early 1940s that we're referencing for the overall design. But there's little things from the other ones that I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. So this is like a 10% reference, and this is like a 90% reference. But when you slap those all onto a reference board, you wouldn't know the difference. You know what I mean? And the issue with pure ref is that it enables you to do that without thinking, right? A lot of newer artists, whenever I see it, there's equal weight on all of their references. And that's the issue. It's not really pure ref itself. It's how you use it as a amateur artist. So whenever you're using pure ref as a program is fine. You know, I don't have an issue with the program. It's how you use it, right? But just understand that organizing a reference board is so important, right? If you ever see my reference boards here, I'll even show you. Where are we at? Let's see. Livestream season 2 episode. Where am I at? Where is my reference board at? Here you go. So this is my reference board from the first week of last sessions of streaming, right? Is one image per topic, right? And it's like, this is what I'm looking at. This is what I mostly want. And then I had a folder full of a bunch of other stuff. You know what I mean? And the biggest tendency would be like, let's grab all of these and drag and drop them onto my pure ref board and just have it organize it for me. And it looks all cool. It's all like, you know, you don't have to worry about all the like little things like of like overlap and all that stuff. You know what I'm saying? It sounds funny, but it's just like because I don't like everything about all of these photos. I like little bits about these photos, right? And so whenever I send a reference board to my artist, it's going to look like this, right? It's going to be curated. It's going to be designed, because the important part about a reference board is it tells you where you're going to go. And especially at the high levels, it's going to tell somebody else where to go, right? Because you might know what you're looking at when you put together a reference board, but is someone else going to know? And that's what's going to make you a good art director, right? Because at the end of the day, art director isn't always the one, and really, to be honest, shouldn't be the one that's always doing the paintings, right? We know this because they're the ones that are kind of guiding the whole project. That's why they hire other artists, because the other artists are going to be the hands that draw and design for that project, right? The art director directs them, right? So in this case, having a very curated reference board that has a very specific task is so much better, because I think every single time I've asked, because I teach classes and stuff, I'll have students be like, oh, hey, where's your reference board? I look at it, and it's just like a copy and paste or a screenshot of a pure ref. I'm like, so what were you looking at? And they're like, I don't know. I was like, you have like 50 references on here, man. How do you not know what you're looking at? You know what I mean? And it sounds funny, but I was like, 1 or 2 pictures is all you ever really need. You know, you have the other references for little things here and there, and that's the stuff that you can find on your own. But getting good at kind of curating and making sure that your references are tight and concise and explains what you're trying to say is everything. If you want to get to a high level of art, this is the way to do it. It's not really drawing and painting. Drawing and painting, yeah, we're going to get good at that just because that's what we're doing, right? That's the things that we're going to be doing from, just throughout our whole career, right? But if you want to be an art director, you want to be at a really high level, leading people, this is it. This is something they don't really teach you in class. But this is something you don't even teach at work. You kind of just start figuring it out as you create reference packets, pitch decks, and stuff like that for clients / junior artists and stuff like that, right? So overall, right, PureRef as a program is fine. It's usually the skill level of the artist that's lacking whenever they use it. And that's why I highly recommend not using it, because it forces you to say like, okay, what do I need the most out of this? I can't fit all 50 on here, right? I don't want to scale all 50 images. So how am I going to make this work for me, right? So, how many of you guys here use PureRef though? Just be honest. I'm not going to judge you. I'm just curious. Don't be shy. There's like 10 of you guys in the Discord right now.
I use it.
Sick. Hell yeah, Riley.
I also use it.
Nice.
But never again.
Never
Ever again.
That's right. No, it's cool. I'm
discharged.
Yeah, I used to use it too. Nowadays I use more Miro anyway. But yeah, I used to use a lot Pure before.
nice. Yeah, I mean, I say this. I don't want to shame anybody from using it, but right, it's the same idea that if you've taken my class before, you know what I mean. Where it's like, art is a very intentional medium, right? Or I guess a very intentional career path or topic or subject, whatever you want to call it, right? You have to be extremely intentional with everything that you do, because every choice that you make, right, from camera angle to camera lens to lighting direction to texture to exposure, right? If a lot of this sounds unfamiliar to you, take one of my classes. I'm not trying to sell my classes, but I mean, I teach this in my classes. It's all these very small, minute things, right, that really tell a story. And if you understand what these little things can do, right, it really does kind of, I guess, push you into the next, into that next level, right? Because so many times, sorry, let me get another cough drop. So many times I'll get students that kind of ask me questions of like, okay, so I'm getting a lot better at 3D modeling. I'm getting a lot better at painting, but I don't know why I'm not really getting much reactions out of my work, right? And I'm like, sorry about that. They're like, I'm not really getting a lot of reactions out of my work, right? And I'm like, well, what are you saying with your work? I'm like, what do you mean? I'm just painting an interior. You know what I mean? I'm just designing sci-fi. You know what I mean? Or, I don't say it like that, but you know what I mean? Like it's very much like you're just kind of making stuff, but you're not actually saying anything. You know what I mean? Like it's very much like I designed a cool thing. It's like, but the cool thing doesn't do anything. It doesn't, you know what I mean? It doesn't mean anything. And so that cool thing ends up just being like, oh, okay, that's another sci-fi thing. Even though the form language itself checks off every box, right? In your mind, it's like, Norris told me that if I think about my form languages like this, everything's gonna look good. I'm not calling out Norris, but he's a form language teacher, so he is a form language teacher. And you know what I mean? Like if you follow the rules that they tell you, right? It's like, yeah, it should look good. It's like, yeah, but it doesn't say anything. It doesn't mean anything, right? And this is kind of where you as the artist need to start deciding like, well, what am I trying to say with it? If you don't have a message, if you don't have an intentionality behind it, you usually won't get any reactions out of it, because it's like, well, I mean, you didn't intend for the audience to feel any way about it, so they didn't feel any way about it. You know what I mean? When you say it like that, it's like, yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense, you know? So whenever you're doing anything, right? And not even just reference gathering, but drawing, sketching, think about the angle that you're positioning something at. Think about the horizon line in relationship to the object or to the thing that you're trying to show, right? From literally every small thing that you do needs to have a reason to be a certain way. So you might as well just think it through, right? We'll talk a lot more about these ideas as we're going, right? This first month, this first week, we're talking about reference, and this is kind of where that intentionality comes in with the references. But you know, as we get into like keyframes and very different topics and other things like that, we'll kind of see more of that pop up, and I'll kind of bring it up as much as I can, just because that's kind of what I teach oftentimes. But yeah, so PRF is cool. If you use it, cool. Don't like not use it because I said so, right? But be selective about you know, like when you put something on there. Don't just drop it in and it's like, oh, it organizes it for me. If you ever catch yourself being lazy, just don't. If you're ever like, hey, this is really easy, that's the wrong words to say. Don't do something because it's easy. Do something because it's right. You know what I mean? And we're starting off 2024 strong. Shitting on, because I know a lot of people use PureRef. So that's cool. I appreciate the support, guys. Cool. Just drawing, right? Keeping things loose. So what I'm doing here, right? What I want you to kind of think about. How many of you have done studies before, right? Because I see this a lot where like I'll see a lot of people do studies, right? Where it's like, hey, you know, they for example, right, there's the Inktober type of things where it's like a daily something challenge, or like a film study, or you know, still life, stuff like that, right? Plein airs. But how many of you have ever thought about, what am I trying to get from this, I guess, from this practice, right? Because oftentimes it gets chalked up to, oh, I'm just drawing. I'm just painting something. You know what I mean? And you're just kind of like going through the motions, right? Which is not bad. It's not great though. You know what I mean? And so when you're doing this, and this sounds it's very simple. It's very like, oh yeah, of course, like that. Why wouldn't you? But you'd be surprised, because I get this a lot where I have some students that will. I'm not calling anybody out in particular, but just in general, where like, oh yeah, this person, this amazing artist has been doing these studies, you know, and I'm like, that's great, you know, like that person's great, and I mean, you should probably do something too, right? You know what I mean? Like it's not like bad. But it's a lot of like, you know, there's a lot of copying, right? Where it's like, this person does a study, so I'll do a study, right? I think we saw this a lot whenever I'm not calling out Zach. Zach Rest can do whatever he wants. He's Zach mother effing Rets, right? But he'll do some studies, and then I'll see a lot of other students do studies. I'm like, oh, that's cool. So what are you picking up from this? And they're like, oh, I don't know. I just saw Zach doing it. I'm like, well, Zach is a seasoned professional. He can do whatever he wants. But you know what I mean? What are you doing about it? Like, you're like, what are you getting out of this? You know? And I always see this bewildered look, like I'm just painting, I'm just getting better at painting, man. I'm just getting the juicy strokes. You know what I mean? And I usually end that conversation with like, you should probably be thinking about what you're trying to get out of this, because if you just jump into it and just kind of copy what other people do, it doesn't really help you. It does, in the sense that, like, you know, you're drawing and painting, so there's mileage being gained regardless, right? But if you're very intentional about what you're trying to learn when you need to learn it, right? It kind of rockets your growth so much better, so much more, right? Because there's things that other people are learning that they need to work on at certain points in their career, right? At certain times. And so whenever they do something, it's usually for that reason, right? So when you see a professional doing a study, it's usually something along those lines, right? It's usually like, oh, hey, I was feeling my portraits are kind of bad, so I need to work on that or whatever. And, you know, they're a seasoned professional, so when they do it, yeah, you know, they're doing it right? But I think the biggest issue is whenever I see a lot of students do that, they're like, oh, because this person's doing it or that person's doing it. And it's usually like the wrong intention, because you don't even know why they're doing it, right? Because whenever we're doing studies of any sort, what I want you to think about is, what am I trying to learn from this act, right? Because if I'm gonna put time and effort into doing this thing, right, whatever it is, it better be something that actually applies, right? Because, you know, as we all know, there's so many things that we need to do as artists, right? Because, you know, we know that there's a finite amount of time, right, in this world, or in this, I guess, in your day, so to speak, right? And you need to get to a certain level by whatever, right? Because usually it's like, you know, I have a certain amount of time before my my time runs out, essentially, right? Because, you know, we're not running on infinite money, essentially. So you're gonna need to find a job, you know, parental things, whatever it is. There's always something that says that, hey, I'm running out of time. I need to get to a certain skill level by a certain time period, right? And so whenever you do studies, what you want to do is know why you're doing it, right? And it sounds funny. It's like this. It's like the most basic thing you could ever hear, but you'd be surprised how often people don't think about it. It's like, have you ever tried to throw a bunch of things in the air and then try to catch them all at once? You probably don't catch them all, right? Because that's, you know, it's like it just doesn't work that way, right? Because your attention gets kind of scattered and you're kind of reaching at everything and you miss all of it, right? But if you threw like 10 things in the air, right? And you're like, I want that one. And you just pick that one out of the air. It doesn't matter if all 9 drop. You got the one that you wanted. And then maybe sometimes you can kind of squeeze in another thing, right? That's what the intentionality does, right? And what I want you to think about is, whenever you're doing your study, is, what am I trying to get out of this? You know, because I am essentially, you know, if I was doing this, I'm using company time to do a still life painting, which sounds funny, which is like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, you're paying you. They're going to be paying me to do this. Like, it's part of the contract, essentially. It sounds funny, but it's just like, yeah, that's what's happening. Because I'm going to be sitting here, I'm going to be painting this damn camera on their time, because I need to figure out, well, what the hell am I doing? What is this thing? You know what I mean? And so whenever I'm doing this, I want to know, what am I gaining from this? Because if I don't know what I'm gaining from this, then I'm just wasting time. But if I'm actually doing something that's worth doing, then yeah, you know, it's probably a good thing that I'm doing it, right? So whenever you're doing studies, there's a couple different things that you can do. There's a couple different ideas that you want to kind of have in mind whenever you are, I guess, doing studies, right? The first thing that you want to think about is, well, what am I studying, right? Am I studying forms? Am I studying Am I studying I guess textures? Am I studying proportions? Am I studying mechanics? Am I studying gestures or studying from life? You know what I mean? Like, what's the idea here? Because whenever you do a study, when you look at this painting, right? It's like, or not this. This is a drawing, but whenever you start doing this, there's a million different things you can gain from this, and if you're very specific about it, right? It really can be it really can go a long way. But if you're just kind of going through the motions, it really doesn't really help you because you're not really, like, I guess, conscious whenever you're doing this, right? It's kind of like whenever you're, I don't know if you guys have ever, like, this is a big thing that happens in language, like form libraries, right? Where, you know, people are like, I want to build up my my form language library, right? You know, because they're like, my designs and stuff are lacking, so I need to improve that, right? That's usually the idea. And so usually it's a lot of like, they just kind of pick a culture, and they'll be like, oh, hey, you know, I really want to get good at Greek architecture. Cool. No projects or anything. Just generally speaking. Oops, sorry. Hold up. Give me 1 second. You know, they're not doing a project or anything that like actually uses Greek architecture. They just want to get better at it because it's just something that they're trying to get better at, right? It's not a project or anything. It's just, I have time, I'm going to learn something, right? But the issue with that is you don't really know like what you're trying to get out of it. And I think oftentimes, because I've done that before, where I started learning how to do like some sort of architecture, and then I just like forget all of it by the end, right? And it's kind of funny because it's like, well, I spent all that time to learn something, and then essentially I just don't remember any of it, you know? But whenever I go into something with a lot of intention, that's when it really does, I guess, create like a lasting impression on me. You know what I mean? So you guys are freaking out in the live stream chat. There's a lot of eyeballs. Oops. All right. Well, if you guys have any questions, I mean, definitely hit me up. All right. So pretty simple, right? Pretty easy to kind of understand what I'm doing. But at the end of the day, right, we're just going to kind of take this a little bit slow, right? We're just going to just kind of strip down like what we're looking at here. And I did a quick sketch just to get my proportions right. I'm gonna start fixing this in a second, right? But it's just something where it's like, oh yeah, it's kind of what I'm looking for, right? And then we'll go from there. So from here, I'm just gonna start painting, right? Really, you know, take your time on this. And it sounds funny. This is gonna be the first assignment that we do. It sounds funny where it's like you just want us to do a still life, kinda, you know, but actually look at it, right? This first week, for those doing the assignments, right? This first week really is going to be a lot of like, let's talk about, you know, what the thing that you want to do is going to be, right? First and foremost. And then next is going to be just studying your props, studying your design, right? Just making sure that whatever we do, it looks good, right? So it's going to be pretty simple. Hopefully, a very easy to understand assignment, but it's going to ramp up from here. So definitely do take this seriously. I'm going to show you, not today, but how this all kind of comes into play later. This isn't just going to be like a one-off thing where it's like, oh, hey, this is a cool painting of a singular camera that I did, right? I always have a very, I guess, purposeful approach to the way I kind of go about my my I guess my process as a whole. So definitely, like, we will be using this again. Don't worry about it too much. But you know, for now, just treat this as a study, right? You know, I'll show you the shenanigans later, on how I kind of use this to my advantage and make sure that every step that I have that I do in this isn't wasted. You know, not that this is a waste. Doing it by itself is definitely a good thing. So don't take that the wrong way. But it is something where it's like, you know, you could also use this for other things too. Oh, you guys are talking in the live stream hangout. Let's see. Sorry, if I missed any questions in that live stream chat, I can't normally see it. So if you guys do have any questions, just hit me up.
Hey Kenny.
Yo, what's up, dude?
Yeah, so like I was about to ask before the live stream, like I usually got overwhelmed with reference. Now I know why. Because like mindlessly, like I was putting on like, ooh, I like that, like that. It's like all you can eat buffet. Like I want to eat everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now I know like the problem. And like once I was thinking of like, okay, I will select 5 images and like imagine a story out of, and I really like it was better than like like I don't know, putting a lot of images and like not thinking straight. So yeah, I understand like and I'll like use PureF in a different way from now on.
Mm-hmm.
Like prioritizing what images are like the most important, and then like so like that's what you're doing, right? So a few like 4 or 5 selected images are the main images which you are like, that's the like the main plot, and then there are a lot of like other references. Like that's how you're dividing your reference.
Yeah. So whenever you, I guess whenever you start, right? What I normally do is I just go on Google, right? And I just, for, you know, wherever I'm reference gathering, but, you know, mostly Google, and I'll just start grabbing things, right? Like I don't even care for the first little, like, couple hours. I'm just like, just gathering things, right? And then you have to slow down and you have to ask yourself, like, hey, what's this reference for? What did I like about this? It's that next step of, you know, I guess it's that next step of trying to analyze like why you even like the thing. You know what I mean? That's what's gonna make your I guess your reference gathering process a lot more refined, right? Because you can't just gather references just to gather them, right? And then you just have them on a huge menu, and you're like, what the hell am I looking at, right? You want to gather what you can. And there's always something that you like about everything. And so I always kind of gather like 3 or 4 that are like the ones that's like mostly. These images carry like 90% of my ideas, right? But I still have the other like 100 images. They're just in a folder somewhere. And I'll kind of click through it, or I'll have it for certain things. And I kind of like use it as a, like, they're still in there. I just don't look at them as often because, you know, these references also have the potential to distract you. That's my biggest issue. It's not that, you know, these images, are always useful, right? Because sometimes it really could be just, oh no, I'm just looking at way too much. Because, you know, if you've ever gotten like client work, for example, it's like they'll give you references like on a whim. They're just like, oh yeah, I saw this, it made me laugh, and I kind of want to throw it in there. And you're like, dude, that's not helpful at all, because this is not what you're asking for. You know what I mean? Like it's very odd how some clients will do that, but it's because they don't know any better. You know what I mean? Sometimes they just don't know any better because there was something genuine about it. It's just maybe That, like, for example, this camera, like, I really like that, this camera, it kind of looks very tactile, right? But maybe you're looking at it, you're like, oh, is this all made of metal? It's like, well, I don't really need it to all be made of metal. I need it to feel tactile though, and it's a different feeling, right? It's a different intention. And what you want to do is get that intention right? Because we as concept artists, we are, generally speaking, I guess, informed just through references, right? Because we're the ones that actually create the images. So whether it's your art director, whether it's your clients or whoever, right? It's always going to be references or words at worst, right? There isn't any references, it's just words. But generally speaking, they have it's going to look kind of like this. So they'll give you, they'll give you like that, those kind of things whenever you start your projects, right? And you have to look at it and be like, this reference is good and this reference is going to distract, right? As an art director or as a lead, right? For my artists, sometimes I would have to look at the references that our client gave us and be like, oh no, this reference is going to throw them off. I can't give them this one. I'll explain it to them. I'll maybe throw it in as a footnote, but I have to curate that reference for my artists, because if I don't, they're going to see this and they're going to get distracted. They're going to think like, oh, this is exactly what they want. When in reality, they like 10% of that idea. They like a little bit to where it's like, that's kind of cool, but that's not really what they're looking for. You know what I mean? And getting really good at organizing those thoughts. And I'll show you some more stuff next week on how I do that, or like, how I go about it. I mean, it's the same stuff that I talked about with the week 1 of the previous live streams, on like how I organize that board. But it's the same idea. It's, really making sure that whenever we do this, there's intention behind every single step of this process, and why you're using it, Sorry.
I get your point.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Sorry, I'm kind of nasally, you guys. I'm very stuffy right now.
I also had another question, like,
What's up?
for the props for first week. So, should we narrow down on a few props, or should we before finding the reference? Should we focus on okay, I maybe want to see like a mask or a backpack or something, or should we just create props like more of a wide, whatever comes to our mind?
So, what I would do first, right? For those that are participating, this is for everybody that's participating. What I would do first is establish whatever your assignment is going to be, right? So in this case, whatever your design is going to be, that's that's what I'm talking about. So what is that? What is that prop, or what is that thing, right? And then start gathering references for everything that you would need for that. So in this case, right, if you remember back to what I was talking about in this one, I have the camera, right? That's the exact camera that I'm going to use. Not this one. This one. This is the exact kind of, the base that I'm going to be using. It's going to be different, but that's the main reference point that I'm going to be using. And then I have my inspiration, right, from various medias and sources on how they did certain things. I'm not going to just imagine you saw this dude, he was like, hey, I want you to design a camera for me. And you saw this snake. You're like, what the hell is he talking about? You know what I mean? And this is a reference that I wouldn't show until later, right? Or I wouldn't bring it up until maybe something else, right? This is, sorry, sidetracking, but just kind of showing you what a reference board actually looks like whenever you don't curate it, right? Because you're like, just imagine, I want you to design a camera and you get this. What is that? You know what I mean? That's crazy. That's and that happens all the time. You would be surprised, how often that actually happens. I think every assignment that I get, they'll give me a reference board and they're like, oh yeah, I just kind of like the way it looks like he has arms. And you're like, what? Why'd you put that on the reference board? You know, and like, well, I thought it was kind of cool. You know, maybe include something like that, you know, but they don't want a snake on the thing. Like it's not, I'm not making a camera out of a snake, right? So this is kind of what you want to think about when you're kind of gathering reference, or like, you know, I don't want it to transform, but I included the reference in my folder, but it's not going to be on the final board. You know what I mean? So just things to think about. But you know, whenever you start, just make find your main inspirations, or find your references, find your main inspirations, and then find some other things that are kind of like relevant, right? And then start kind of identifying what are the more important ones and start studying that. So in this case, I'm doing like the base phone, so I can kind of get an understanding of what the proportions and general kind of I guess general kind of things are in that prop, in that thing. You know what I'm saying? So it's pretty simple. It's not really too complicated, but you kind of want to think through everything first and then start painting, you know?
Yeah, got you. Thanks.
Yeah, for sure. Did that work? Cool. You guys still hear me, right? I just changed the setting, so make sure.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Sick.
Yep.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, it's about that time, guys. How's it going? We're at random chit chats. What do you guys? Who's got some cool New Year's resolutions?
Getting good at art, obviously, but specifically for me, it's splash arts, and then getting into sculpting.
Nice. Splash
Yeah.
art sculpting. Cool, man.
Yeah, I mean, I've been meaning to get my characters in 3D, so I'm just looking forward to that after, you know, finishing all those splash arts, including the one that I still haven't finished during the mentorship.
Nice. I'll look forward to it, dude.
I'll try. That has been long overdue for finishing.
Yeah. Dope. Anybody else? Damn, nobody else. Just G.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, what's up?
So I'm new in this group.
Hi.
This is the first time I'm here. And do you have any advice about exercise to do to improve in environment design?
Exercises for environment design?
Yeah, like what do you think is the best exercise to do to learn composition, thumbnailing?
So,
Opinion?
I mean, that's a pretty loaded question, right? That's because there's like a million different ways you can do it. I guess what level are you asking for? I mean, I'm not asking for your level, but like, are you looking for very beginner things, or no? How about this? I'll talk about all of them we'll talk about like beginner things that we can kind of do, right? That really help, and then we'll talk about some advanced things. We're actually just talking about this in the live stream plus people's hangout earlier today. So not this specifically, but we'll get you'll know it once I get there. So whenever I let me save this before I lose it. Boom. Yeah, just save it as untitled. It's good. Cool. All right. So I guess, yeah, how do you get better, right? Like things that you can do to kind of get better at environment design specifically, right? I think really the biggest thing, right, is understanding what you're trying to design for. So in really what I'm trying to say is there's a couple different ideas that come to mind for me whenever I'm doing these things, right? And whenever, let's say, for example, I do an environment design. If you haven't taken my class before, for those that have, you know what I'm talking about. I always talk about really understanding the intention behind what it is that you're trying to show, right? Because if you do an environment design, there's a camera pointing at a thing. And you're trying to tell a story through that, right? There's always like, somebody's supposed to be experiencing this in some sort of way. So, and for you, what does that mean, right? Well, the first thing is, the things that you can work on are understanding what that even entails, right? So, for example, what you could do is learn film, doing film studies, watching more movies, right? Not even drawing, like just watching more movies. And it sounds funny where it's like, how do you get better at environment design? By watching something, right? But in reality, that's what it is, right? So, my first recommendation, right? Do film studies, because what it helps you do is it really informs you on how somebody that's better than you, right? A director or somebody more advanced, basically. I guess designs a shot, right? Because they're shooting environments as well, right? I mean, not always, but there's an environment in that thing, right? And so what that means is, well, why do I feel scared whenever I'm watching this movie? Why do I feel excited? Why do I feel a sense of relief? Why do I feel trapped? Or whatever is going on in your scene, right? In this movie, why do I feel that way? And start studying what's doing that? You know what I mean? Like, have you ever watched a movie and you feel kind of nervous? And it's like, that's weird, man. It's just a movie. It's a 2D image on a screen. And for whatever reason, you're just like, I don't know, man, don't go in there. You know what I mean? Like, you're just like, you're on edge. Usually.
No.
The
when you
go ahead.
like
Sorry, you're breaking up. Repeat that.
when you a move concept or something, you make you. Do you ever take to ask? Do you think it's a good idea to write down? I don't know, notes about when you see something, because I think when you see a movie, like you said, the movie go on and you forget everything. So
yeah, you got to write it down, or you have to go back and watch it again or whatever, right? Like the first time you watch it, just enjoy it, right? Just watch it, just experience it and experience it the way that it's supposed to be experienced, right? But on another watch, right? Ask yourself why did I feel that way? Why did that movie do that to me emotionally? You know what I'm saying? Like, it sounds very odd, a very weird question to ask yourself, but it's important, because we as entertainment designers, right? We work for these people, these directors, these IPs, whatever, right? Because when you design a concept, it ends up in a movie or a game or an animated show or whatever, right? And so, because I feel like there's this big misunderstanding with environment design where it's like, environments are, they're, it's just a space for characters to be inside of, right? It's like, not really. It is, but no. It's yes and no at the same time, but very much it's not that simple, right? Maybe coming from an environment designer, right? Maybe I feel a little more strongly about it, but it is something where our environments have intention, right? There's a story that needs to be said about whatever's going on, right? And the environment design encompasses a couple different things, from I guess the location and the set itself, right? Everything that we're looking at, to the camera angles and how we kind of decide to show it, right? Because there's angles that you can show things in. So whenever you try and show it, what kind of angles are you showing it in that that best helps describe, you know, the moment that you're trying to convey, right? And after that, it's, you know, there's a lot of meaning that can be, I guess, derived from very simple things, right? From where the horizon line is to, you know, how turned that camera is to, you know, a lot of even the exposure of lighting, right? And I'm getting very complicated about this, but basically at the end of the day, right? It's about learning how to be intentional about everything that you do, because everything that we put on a page, right, from every brush stroke that we put down to every choice that we make for composition, can and should have a meaning to it. Never just put something down just to be like, oh hey, I just did that, and you're like, whoa, why'd you use a Dutch angle, right? You're like, oh, it's because I thought it'd be better. You know what I mean? That's not a reason. It doesn't actually work that way. Sometimes you can trip into a good result, but generally speaking, you want to be very intentional about it, right? And so what you want to do is study how better designers did some of these moves. And if you can learn how they did it, it's going to make you a better designer. You know what I mean? So first thing is, like, you know, finding studies like that, like really understanding, like, you know, what is it that that these cinematographers, these directors, and these other artists decided to do in certain scenarios, right? So that's one of the first studies. That's I would say, as a general advice for literally any environment designer at all, ever, right? That's like, you know, I could say that's literally any level of student, and that would probably be relevant, right? After that, what I would probably do is, you know, we were actually talking about this during the hangout, the Livestream Plus hangout, is draw boxes. And it sounds funny. It sounds like I'm a professional, like I'm a seasoned pro. Why would I need to draw boxes again? You know what I mean? It sounds funny. But I will say this, I've been in professional settings where people were told that they need to draw boxes again, and it sounds weird. It's one of those things that it I don't want to say it's insulting, but like it is a little bit like kind of like, you know, I don't say it hurts, but like it is hard to hear. And everybody here that's listening, everybody that is probably gonna listen, and everybody that's probably not listening, you could probably draw another box or two. I just want to say it like that. I can draw another box or two, right? At any level, it doesn't really matter. Unless you're like, you know, Scott Robertson or Kim Jong-il, you could probably draw a couple more boxes to get better at it. This is what it is. Because, you know, when I started my first job, we came out of school. We're professionals at that point, right? We're getting paid to do the thing that we're getting paid to do, right? And we, you know, we're not bad. We're like, you know, we're advanced students / early professionals. So, you know, mid-level at best, most likely junior level artists, right? And our boss would come down and be like, your perspective's kind of not great, right? And it's not like we're like off, like our grid was off or anything. It's just your understanding of form is just not quite there yet, right? And you know, it's just something where you could probably just get better at it, right? And it sounds funny, but we would literally like go buy a ream of paper, right? Those don't know, it's one of those like copy paper stacks. It's like 500 sheets in a thing. It's, you know, printer paper. It's cheap, right? And some ballpoint pens, right? That or high-tech C's is what we were using. But it's basically what I'm saying is cheap-ass paper, right? And a cheap-ass pen. And we would do like 500 pages of boxes. And it sounds funny. It sounds like, why would you do that, right? If you're like, even like, you're not even a student anymore, why would you be doing that? I don't know, man. It sounds crazy, and it sounds like a waste of time. And to be honest, it probably is. But there's something about it where whenever you do it, it makes you so much better. No matter what level you're at, going back to the basics, kind of going through that circle again, dude, it's everything, man. Like I was doing boxes like 2 months ago. I had like a stack like this tall. I was just doing them on my desk. I was doing one in the morning. You know what I mean? Like I was just like, I need to get better at drawing. So I just busted out a pen and I just got some copy paper, right? And there's, everybody has it. So there's no excuses, right? There's no like, I can't afford copy paper. If you can't afford copy paper, you've got some issues. Not issues, but like art's the last thing you really should be worried about, right? Because copy paper is the cheapest paper you can get, right? Notebook paper doesn't even matter, right? I'm not shaming anybody here. What I'm saying is it's the cheapest form of art products you can possibly buy, right? The cheapest paper with the cheapest pens. And if you can do that and just draw boxes, just put forms together, right? On a page and just do that day in, day out, 500. I'm putting a lot of emphasis on this, but you'd be surprised how good you'll get afterwards. And it sounds weird. It sounds like you're like, I'm a professional. I've done my share of boxes in Viscom class. And I was like, yeah, but you were a student at that time, but you're a professional now. So you should be easy, right? And yeah, I mean, it is easy. It's kind of mindless sometimes. But the growth that you get from it, dude, I promise you, it is insane. It's crazy. It's if you're ever looking for like what's gonna like kind of give you that edge, it's these weird exercises. It's these weird like little things that kind of go a long way. So things like that. Film studies, like I said that earlier, drawing boxes more. After that, it's really to get better environment design. I would say really the biggest thing is do more environment designs. It sounds, whenever I say it, it sounds so like silly because it's like, yes, to get better, just do more. Yes. But it's, when I say like do more, I don't mean like, cool, do another one. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like that. In development phase where we're just kind of like searching, right? They didn't know what they wanted. We didn't know what they wanted. They hired us to just explore, right? Which is, what we do as concept artists. That's what we do, right? And it was funny because for the first day, me and like 5 other people, we were cranking out like 5 paintings. Right, 5 mid-level paintings, right, which is about standard, what we're kind of expected to do, and we turned it in. So that's what 5 times 5, 25 paintings that one day, right? It's like cool. So we did that again the next day. Right, so we did that for a whole week straight, 5 days, right? A work week is 5 days, Monday through Friday. So that's what is that? 25 paintings, 5 days. That's 125 paintings. In 1 week, right, for the client. And they go, cool, that looks great. Keep going. I'm like, okay, cool, man. So we did it again, another week. Cool. We're doing pretty good, right? They love it. And then we did it again and again and again and again, right? And we were like, I don't know, man, like 400 paintings each. Like, I shit you not. Like, and that might be like an underestimate. Like, we did a ton. And when I did it, it's, to be honest, it's kind of like the basis of what I teach now in my environment design classes. It's like how I got to that process. For those that have taken my class before, that kind of like know my process, that's where it developed. Because there's like, whenever you like learn how to do environment design, there's a level of like, oh, I know what I'm doing. And then there's you're indestructible. Like, no matter what you do, it's going to be, at the very least, be structurally fine. You know what I mean? Like it's like it sounds funny, but it's like it's something where it's like your paintings are always going to be at the very least okay, right? The designs, we can talk about that later. But the painting itself, dude, it's always going to be on point, you know? And that's kind of where we got with that. It was like 400, 500 paintings and it hurt. It was painful. Like the act of it was painful. Like it actually, like I think I was developing like carpal tunnel or something from that. Like it was actually painful. Like not even like joking. But after a while, you know, you're kind of like, I can make ideas just on the fly. And I think that's really where you got to be with it, where whenever you're, I guess, first starting, you know, the idea of like doing, you know, a couple ideas, like, oh, you know, I used to think like 15 ideation sketches was like a lot, where I was like, dude, I have to do 15 thumbnails for this class. And then, you know, you do 15, you're like burnt out. You're like, dude, this is like, I'm juiced out, man. This is all I could do. This is all I could like ever like dream of achieving. You know, you're all dramatic about it because, you know, you don't know any better, right? And then you get to actual workforce and, you know, that's your job. We as concept artists, right? That's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to generate ideas day in, day out. And it's funny because, I mean, you know, like how do you generate ideas after you've gone through like a couple hundred, you know what I mean? And if you're never really put in that situation, it's really hard. It's really hard to imagine it. But I mean, it's not something I recommend for everybody. But if you can do it, if you have the time to do it, I highly recommend, because it's like it kind of fixes, I would say, like everything. Not fixes everything, but like it makes it so that your process is a little more bulletproof, right? You're able to, I guess, troubleshoot your way through things a lot easier. If you ever taken my class before, and you'll see me like just kind of quickly give notes on somebody's work, and you're like, dude, how do you just find the answer to that so quickly? You know, because I'll get this a lot where it's like, you know, I'll have a class, they're struggling, right? They're like, you know, I mean, you know, it's a lot of, it's you know, it's a class, it's your student level, right? And I'm looking at the painting and I'm like, oh yeah, cool, just fix that. Boom, right? And it's like, generally speaking, it fixes the problem. And they're always like, dude, how'd you do that? And I'm like, it's because I ran into that problem before, right? And the issue is, or the thing about, I guess, being a working professional is you have to run into as many problems as you can, right? Because you running into problems is what makes you solve them quicker. Because if you run into it once and you solve it, right, you can do it again the next time, right? Because now that problem of how do I solve this harder issue doesn't really come up anymore, because you've already solved it once. You know what I mean? And that's kind of why I like doing, I like having people ask me a lot of questions, right? Because there's things that I'll do during my, I guess, demos and stuff that I don't really think about, right? It's very much like I'm just kind of running through the motions, right? Because, you know, I don't want to say cruise control, but like, you know, the fact that I'm having a full conversation with you here, right, usually means that I'm not 100% focused on what I'm doing in the painting, if that makes sense. Not that I'm like not focused, but like, you know, if you're having a full conversation with somebody, that means your thought process is at least split in some sort of way, right? We can agree to that. It's the same here, where it's like, you know, I'm not really thinking about values or perspective or anything like that, because I already know to do it, you know. And it's the same thing with a lot of those other things. So I was a little ranty, but you know how it is. Nick in the YouTube chat says, New Year's resolution: find more time to get outside and gouache. Been too long. Yes, I've actually been doing that more too. So I guess for those, another thing for those that don't know, I'm starting up my my plein air group again. So I guess for those that don't know, I guess I started doing plein air sessions. I started hosting plein air sessions with people. I mean, I just called people up, told them to come. But it was a thing for a lot of my like classmates and stuff. that were taking brainstorm classes and other school stuff back in like 2015, 2016. And we would just go hang out, mostly just talking shit, doing whatever. And around we're around LA. I'm local to LA, so I can only do it here. So if you're not here, unfortunately, location, right? But for those that are here, we're doing weekly plein air sessions, or not weekly, sorry, bi-weekly, twice monthly, plein air sessions. So the next one's coming up this Sunday, actually, on the 14th. We're doing Pasadena City Hall. So if you guys, anybody in the area wants to come out and paint, hit us up. So if you're in the Discord, if you check the roles in the welcome kind of category, there's the roles channel. You can react to the just click the paintbrush one. You'll see it there. But yeah, we're gonna be doing stuff. The last one we went to was Travel Town, which was really cool. It's gonna be mostly free, just because I know money's limited for a lot of people, so I'm not gonna do like all these like paid expensive ones. We might do a paid one every once in a while, like a museum that you have to pay a fee to get into. But the last one was free. The Travel Town Museum is free. Pasadena City Hall is free. I'll let you know when it's a paid one too. So and it won't be like $100 or anything. It'd be like like a price of a museum ticket, not that crazy. So, but if anybody's interested, yeah, just join that. Where is that?
Thank you for all your information. It's really cool to hear all this.
Yeah.
Very useful. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad it helps. It's something where it's like I know for me, seeing a lot of stuff online, I'm like, sometimes it's I don't know. It's like it can be misleading or wrong sometimes. And not that I'm always right. I want to make that clear. This is my perspective on my very limited experience, so on and so forth. This is my I'm not a lawyer speech. So, don't, you know what I mean? Like take everything I say with a grain of salt. But, it is something where I find that just asking these questions, right? Because I think the biggest thing for me whenever I first started, right, was I didn't know anything. And when you don't know anything, it's the worst, right? Because the problem is, it's not that you don't know anything. It's that you don't even know what you're supposed to know. You know what I mean? Like, it's the worst. For those that if you started let's say like Art Center, right? You're very fortunate because you're kind of surrounded by the industry at that point, and everything that you hear, not everything, but generally speaking, right? You're kind of like on the right track, or the people around you are on the right track. But if you went to a college in like bumfuck nowhere, you know what I mean? Like, and they have like illustration major, right? Something. I'm not throwing shade at these places. They just don't know any better. But like, it's hard, man. Like, cause I went to University of Houston, and that's not a small school by any means. Is in Texas, right? But they're definitely not an entertainment design haven or anything like that. And it hurts, and you just don't even know, like, you don't even know that you're supposed to know some of these things. You don't even know that, and you'll spend like your entire 4 years in a college to come out and then find out that you're at the starting line. You're like, what? I spent $100,000 in school, and I expected these teachers to tell me like, hey, you're supposed to know these things. And then you come out of it and you're like beginner art center student level. You're like, what? You know what I mean? Like, that's crazy.
This happened to me too. I was studying in Florence because I'm from Italy, and I studied comic books, art, and illustration.
Mm-hmm.
But nothing about value, color theory, all this stuff. I'm learning by myself now.
Yeah.
So taking classes and stuff like that. and you're upset because because of the time, because
Yeah.
you all these years for nothing and you have to learn it again. So yeah, that's the bad side.
Yeah. Right. And it's hard because for one, you're already an artist, so people are already like talking shit about you, right? Where it's like, pick a real major, right? That's I'm an artist, so I think it is a real major for anybody that didn't catch that. But it is something where like if it's like you already have all this pressure from friends that are graduating, like you guys at like high school or whatever final grade that you guys were in that went to university or whatever, right? Those people are graduating, doing their thing, and you're like, well, we graduated at the same time, so technically speaking, I should be at the same level they are. They just had their first kid and bought a house, and I'm like eating Pop-Tarts because I can't afford anything else, and you're you're 4 years doing something, and you're talking to these professionals, and everyone is like, oh, you should learn Viscom. You're like, what the fuck is Viscom? You know what I mean? Which is, you'd be surprised how often that happens. Like I'll be like, oh, have you taken a Viscom class? And you're like, what is that? And it's the worst place to be. Because I have friends and family, like especially even family, where they're like, they're like, hey, I want to be an artist, and I saw that you were, I'm about to graduate. What can I do to kind of make my portfolio better? Or what can I do to get a job? And then really I'm looking at it, I'm like, you got like 4 more years, and it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to say that to somebody that's been trying, and it's not their fault, right? It's something that it's hard to hear that, but it's the reality, because at the end of the day, the competition in our circle is so huge. Like, I mean, for everyone here, you know what I'm talking about. Like it's dumb how much competition there is. And even more so when you don't even know what's happening, and that's kind of what I want this to be. And that's why you guys, there's like 10 of you guys in the live stream hang out now. And then I know Nick's watching and then whoever else is watching and whoever else is going to be watching. Right. But, it's something where, the reason I have you guys on is because ask, talk about things, because, it sounds silly. It sounds like, why are you like on and asked so much about talking? It's because dude, you'd be surprised how many people don't know what you know, especially as a teacher, like, cause once you put that like teacher label on your bio or something like that, you get a lot of questions. I'm not saying it's bad or anything, but generally speaking, that's what happens. Right. And so you get a lot of that, and it's hard to say it sometimes, just because I know they're trying hard. Right? I don't blame them for some of the things that they're missing. It's not their fault, right? But it does have to be said where I'm like, hey, you're not really that close. You don't. I'd highly recommend finding another job in the meantime, because you're not gonna make that deadline that you just informed me about. And it's something where the better that we can get as a team, right? All of us together, like everybody here has questions, has things that you want to know, because I guarantee you that if you have that question, somebody else in the group has that question, and that's kind of where that's why I like to leave it as open as possible. That way, we can chat about things. We can, do have actual conversations that actually matter to people, right? Versus like, hey, watch me, I don't know, I can do this painting with one photo. It's like, who cares, man? You know what I mean? Like, it's like, there's some cool tricks that we see online, but at the end of the day, it doesn't actually help you. There's a lot of things that I see online where I'm like, that's not useful for anybody. It's a lot of clickbaity stuff. And it's not really useful. I'm not calling anybody out, but like, there's a lot of that online, and I just want to make sure that everything, at the very least, there's something out there that's like kind of relevant. You know what I mean? So, but yeah. So, I don't know. I'm glad you're finding it useful, man.
How many
Yeah.
times you do this kind of live? Once a month, a week? I don't know. This is my first time.
Yeah, so we're gonna be doing it once a week, every Tuesday. So exact same time that you showed up. Um, so it's gonna be every week Tuesday, 7 to 9. So that's an update. I mean 7 to 9 ish is kind of when I'm planning to do it. Before I think in the 2023 live stream, so the last sessions, I was doing 7 to 10, but that was with about an hour's worth of feedback. We've kind of separated those things out now. So the feedback is in a whole different group now. So for those that have showed up late, tuning in now, whatever it is, there's a feedback session to all of this. So I'm giving out actual assignments. You know, this is an actual class. If you're wondering about this, this is a real thing. If you're wanting to participate, you can join that role in the Discord. If you go to my Discord and go to server shop, I'll click on it right now. There's a 1 week trial too. So if you want feedback on one assignment, you can get that for free. You got to time it correctly. It might kick you out before whatever it is, but it's $9.99 a month. You can sign up for that. I'll be giving you feedback 4 to 5 times a month. Each month is a little bit longer or shorter, but generally speaking, 4 to 5 times. This month is going to be 4 different times, and you're going to have access to all of these channels here, and I'll kind of walk you through that once you get through that. But yeah, you're going to get feedback and all that. The feedback happened. This week's feedback happened right before this live stream. The number is actually a lot bigger than I anticipated. We're at 13 people right now, so is it 13? That's 12, sorry. So it's actually a decent sized class. So if you guys are looking for feedback and everything, please join. I'd love to have you. It's probably the cheapest class you're going to find. So,
And how about your environment class? I think you have one.
Yeah, so I do an environment design course at Brainstorm School. That's coming up on the 20 something. But that's through Brainstorm. So I'm teaching it, but that's not my platform. So, but that class, you can definitely sign up for that. If you look, go to brainstormschool.com and look up World Building 2. That's my class. If you haven't taken a World Building 1 class, I would highly recommend it. World Building 1 or something equivalent, right? I'm not trying to sell the other classes. Support the other classes, right? Because you know what I'm saying. But I say it because if you don't take those classes in the order they're supposed to be taking it, you're gonna have a bad time. It's just not fun. It's an experience, and you kind of waste money too. So if you haven't taken the World Building 1 class, definitely consider taking that one. But yeah, I teach the World Building 2 class.
Oh yeah, real quick too. Would you say World Building 1 and ENT 1 are in like the equivalent level?
No, not even close. Not saying that like bad or anything. But the way I don't teach the ENT 1 class anymore. Kaysen teaches that class, I believe now. But the World Building 1 class is a more introductory level class to environment design, right? So you're learning general perspective and environment building and stuff. ENT 1 is a project-based portfolio level class. So the way I normally think about it, right? The way I like to think about it is you take your your foundation level classes first, your Viscoms, your World Building 1s, your DC 1s, all the beginner level stuff, and then you take the ENT 1 level class. That's the last foundation class that you take, and then you move into the intermediate level stuff. So like my class, World Building 2, other classes, so on and so forth, if that makes sense.
What was it? What was the other classes again? Not the world building one. You said something like DC1 and all that stuff.
Oh, DC1, AD1, everything that's in the foundation classes.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I think my second term in the academy here was the world building 1 class, and it was taught by Eric Yang, and
Yeah.
my God, that kicked my ass.
Yeah, it's he's an OG dude, so he knows what he's doing. But yeah,
Yeah.
that class is it's hard. Like a lot of these classes really should kind of be taken by themselves. With like world building 1s, ENT1 especially, AD1. My class, world building 2, should really be taken by itself. I don't say that because it's my class, but I say it because like I really don't recommend doing that with, you know what I'm saying? It's not advised, to say the least.
Taking how I finished your class while taking Kevin Jick's class was just beyond me.
Did you finish? Did you finish though? Did you finish? I don't know, man.
Okay, good point.
I don't call you out online, but
Fair. I'm just.
So
It was just a big mistake of just taking 3 classes at once. That's all.
yeah, it's tough for everybody. This isn't not just for you specifically, but like what I recommend, right? Especially taking classes, right? Because you can kind of get like, I don't know. It feels very. It can be very like oh, I want to get through. I want to kind of take all these classes, and I kind of want to get through it quickly because for one, it's like, I don't know if the teacher's always gonna be teaching it, or 2, I don't know if they're gonna be offering it later, or 3, I don't have that much time. So usually what happens is there ends up being a lot of like skipping, right? Where it's I'll just take these at the same time, whatever, right? I would highly, and I don't even, like very highly recommend not doing that. Because usually what happens is, because I teach world building 2, right? The intermediate level course. So it's not like hard, but it's not like easy either. You know what I mean? If you took world building 1, you're like, technically speaking, I don't even recommend taking it in order. Like taking world building 1 and then world building 2, it's not a bad decision. It's just ill-advised. Because what I recommend, and this is what I recommend as a student that actually took these classes, right? What I recommend is when you take classes, let's say you took world building 1, right? And then you were like, cool, I am world building 1 level. I need to move up. The next class that you should take is not world building 2. I don't recommend that because you're not quite developed in the other things, I'm talking in brainstorm classes because that's the school that I teach at. But this applies anywhere, right? It's like if you're doing like a la carte classes, right, where you pay for your own classes, and like art center or universities will kind of run you through their curriculum, right? So you don't really have to worry about it as much, and the teachers are a little more, I guess, in tune with the needs and stuff for the other classes, right? You know what I'm saying? So usually, what it really is like, you should really be taking all the foundation classes first and then move to the intermediate level classes, because I don't skip perspective. Like I don't teach perspective in my class, right? It's a world building 2 class, but I don't teach boxes, right? Because you should have done that already, right? So if you don't know it, right, and it's like knowing it and like, I guess getting good at it is like 2 different things. Right, because like I knew how to draw boxes like as soon as I picked up an art book, but I wasn't good at it. You know what I mean? And it sounds funny, but it's true. It's something where really understanding how to like comprehend these ideas is really what I need you to do. Right, like really like digest what you're learning before you move on, because for one, it can be detrimental to your learning, right? Where you're like, well, I just wasted $800. That's if you took one class out of line, because a class $800, right? And then, you're $800 short, and then you're a term behind, and then you're probably doing it because you're running low on time, right? Because you're like, oh, I've been doing this for 4 years because I went to university, and then now, I'm kind of like trying to catch up because my parents are like, when are you gonna get a job or whatever it is, just external pressures are making you make these decisions. It's not your fault, but it is something where the fastest way to get through a lot of these things is take it the slow way, And it's painful to hear that when you're coming out of college. Like when I say like, hey, you have like, you're coming out of college and I say you have 4 years left. That's not me like generously guesstimating. Like I'm like, that's me like telling you like, no, you have 4 years left. You have 3 years left. That's not me like just guessing. And some people can definitely do it faster, but it's hard. It really is.
Essentially, just don't take things like time as granted.
Yeah. And that's why, I felt like things like this, especially when you guys talk, right? You guys are a little shy lately, but I'll let you slide on that. But with this live stream, it's cool because, I don't always talk about the things that students need to hear, right? Because I kind of forget. Like, it's not that, not that I'm out of touch or anything, but like, it's been a while since I've been a student. And, because some of the questions that pop up, I'm like, oh yeah, I guess you guys don't know that, And it's like, it's helpful for me because, I get to hear it. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. That was an issue that I used to have. And then from there, I'm just kind of like, just kind of going with you guys on whatever it is that, whatever you're trying to figure out. But as we're kind of going through these assignments and stuff, definitely like ask, talk, participate, because the more participation that happens here, the better everyone gets, right? Because every question you guys ask, you like, I don't know if you guys, for those that like rewatch or like kind of watch these streams on the side, you'll kind of notice that the better streams, the better episodes that we have are usually the ones where a lot of people are like asking questions, or there's somebody that's like really curious that day or whatever. And it's usually just because they're like, oh yeah, I just had some questions about a certain thing or whatever.
Cool to know for the next time.
Yeah. I mean, if this, like the reason that it's on like we're live like this because it just makes it easier to talk. So if no one's talking, what's the point, right? So things like that.
What's your background? I know you because I saw some of your tutorial on Foundation Group.
Okay, cool.
I'm gonna take all of them because I think are useful. But now I'm doing some other because I have a checklist with the thing I'm studying now.
Nice.
So once I finish that, I'm gonna start with you, and if I like, I'm gonna take your classes. But how your background?
I guess professionally, right? I'm assuming.
I mean everything. How you started, what you studied before, which school you did, and all this kind of stuff.
Well, I was born on a warm summer night, but sorry. Anyway, so I guess a little about me. Yeah, I guess this is the first episode. A good introduction would be nice, right? So I guess for those that don't know, hi, I'm Kenny Vo. We're 2 hours into this almost done stream, but that's cool. But I'm a concept artist, right? Or a concept artist / visual development artist. I primarily at the moment work in animation as a visual development artist. I teach classes. I teach mostly environment design classes, like world building classes. But I do specialize in color keys and matte paintings specifically for what I do. So, like my work, for example, on Blue Eye Samurai, I guess one of the more recent projects that came out for me, that I was doing a lot of matte paintings and color keys for that project specifically. It just kind of happened to be that way. I didn't really start that way, I guess, but I did end that way. So, but I started pursuing art professionally in 2014. I guess with the intent of being a professional in 2014. And then I went to Noman School of Visual Effects for about a year. I was accepted into their 4-year or 3-year program. Sorry, and dropped out after the first year. Not in a bad way. My grades were great, A+, baby. But the first year was a lot of foundation courses. So we basically were kind of learning how to draw, paint, all the fundamentals and stuff. And so because of that, I really fell in love with concept art because I kind of wanted to be a modeler when I first started. Because I was at Noman, I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to be a character modeler for Blizzard or Blizzard or Riot. That's kind of where I wanted to go. Surprise, didn't turn out that way, but I guess oh well, right? But yeah, I guess that was the kind of goals. From there, I left Noman to kind of pursue concept art a little more intently. Brainstorm opened up that year in 2015, so 1 year from 2014, right? And I started going there. And then from there, I was taking classes up until about 2016 when I was hired at Squirrelpad Studios for my first job. And then eventually I made my way up to lead concept artist there. And then we're working in like games, theme park, film and stuff like that. And then from there, I went to a mobile game studio in the Bay Area called Machine Zone. And then from there, I went to Sony Corporation to help them, to build out this world that they were trying to design for. And then from there, I went to Netflix and I was working on Blue Eye Samurai for a little bit, or I guess for a lot of it. I was there from 2020 to 2022. And then from there, I went to Paramount Animation to work on Transformers 1. And then after that, I'm now doing full-time freelance. So basically, I just take contracts from whoever now and work from home and talk a lot of shit online. So,
It's good for us.
Yeah. But yeah, pretty short and simple. But yeah, the idea is, I don't have like I've been working for about, what is it? 9 years now? Is it 9 years? Yeah, 9 years. No, 8 years now. Sorry. So not like a ton of experience, but not a little by any means. And yeah, it's been a wild ride. I have a lot of experience I have experience in almost all fields of entertainment, from theme park to games to movies to animation, stuff like that. Just because of the nature of a lot of the jobs that I've taken throughout my career, it's been a lot of like doing a lot of different things, which has been really, really cool. I feel really fortunate about that. Something that I really do like is I've been fortunate enough to be a part of a lot of different productions, for good and bad, right? Where part of like big and small studios, and so a lot of my experience really does come from a lot of those things where it's not like me just making things up. I get to actively compare and contrast the way like I've had like 15 different art directors. I've had a bunch of different production designers. I've had other other leads, and not even to mention all the freelance and stuff that have had. And it's been a nice experience. And I feel like a lot of these things, like when artists kind of like start, right, whenever we are in school, it's about like getting better at drawing, getting better at painting, right? And then whenever you actually start working, it's like none of that matters. Not that it doesn't matter, but like it doesn't really matter that much. You know what I mean? Because everybody can draw a castle. Everybody can like draw and paint whatever it is that you need them to draw and paint, right? But like as an artist, it's like, well, how do I become like a lead or a senior or an art director or whatever? And we don't talk about these things. And there's no class that just goes like, hey man, you're almost an art director level, right? Like, you want to like start learning, they don't do that. They go, hey, we're looking for an art director. You want in? And you're like, hey, I've never been one. They're like, cool, good luck, because you're not an art director until you are, right? So you just figure it out. And a lot of these things, like they don't talk you through it or anything. You're just kind of going, And as an artist in this field, I guess some of the things that we learned in school, I really do feel that it's not, I guess, that relevant to what we learn or to what we need to know when it comes to actual production work, because there's a lot of things that we learn in school where it's like it's very backwards. It's very like, oh, we don't actually do things that way anymore, or we've never done things that way, and it feels very odd to even teach it anymore, right? And I'm hoping with a lot of this stuff, and because I did live streams back in 2022, and it was the same idea where we're kind of like talking about these things, and I'm showing people like the order in which we normally work in. They're like, that sounds so backwards from what I learned in school. And I'm like, yeah, because it's a waste of money to do it the other way, because that's what production is. It's a money's game, right? It's somebody paid a couple $1 million to make this product, and it sounds like a lot of money until you divide it into like 100 different people on a team, right? But it's I don't know. It's a very I feel like once you know what you're supposed to be doing as a student, it kind of focuses you a little bit better, right? Because now it's like, that, oh, okay, I don't need to like, because there's this FOMO, right? Of like, for example, with 3D right now, where everybody is using 3D, right? And it can feel very like you're missing out. And, there might be a degree to that. There might be a level of like, hey, I should probably be learning some of this stuff, right? Which, if you don't know 3D yet, I'm not saying you don't need to know it, but there is something where it's like, don't worry, you can get there, right? But get your design skills better, right? Get your understanding of design up first, because that's the hard part. If you can't design, it doesn't actually matter what 3D program you use. It's just now it's a piece of shit in 3D, right? You know what I'm saying? Like I can see the shittiness from all angles, right? I don't say it like that, but it's true, right? Because bad design will never fly in a production setting. It doesn't matter how good it looks. If your idea isn't thought through, it doesn't truly matter. And I think we get a lot of FOMO of like, hey, what should I be learning? Everybody else is learning this. And as a person that's oftentimes in hiring positions or in leadership positions, I'm like, everybody can do quality in a studio setting. Everybody. There is no artist that's working at a studio that can't do quality that well, right? So what's going to set you apart? More quality? No, never. It's never going to be that way. But your ideas, your intention, and your understanding of the design process is what's going to make you the best, right? That's why, people like Craig Mullins, people like Jamie Jones are still at the top, because if it was about their ability to do 3D, right? Like, I'm not saying Craig doesn't use 3D, but it's not blatantly obvious, right? He paints over a lot of it. And, there's his paintings have different reasons to exist. He's at a different kind of like pipeline compared to us, or I guess compared to some people, right? Like it's more junior level artists is what I'm trying to say. But why do we still look at these 2D heavy artists and be like, wow, they're the greatest, Because it's probably something else. It's probably not their 3D skills, right? So just things to think about. And I'll kind of harp on that as we kind of go on. This is like a yearly tradition for me at this point. So
Kenny, do you have any exercises that you could work on to improve your design skills? Or is it like expanding your visual library?
work on design skills.
Yeah, like I feel like that's something I struggle with, is that I could like replicate something, but the design and the idea is very generic. How can you improve your design skills?
Yeah. So I guess what's generic? We're getting philosophical with this. I'm sorry, but like, because when someone says, you ever get this crit at you, but just anybody in general, right? Whenever like you're designing something and someone says this looks very generic, you ever look at them in the face and go, "What the fuck does that mean?" You're like, don't say it to them. Please don't for everybody here, don't say that to somebody. But you're thinking it. We're all thinking it, And I even like give people crits, and I'll look at them and they didn't say it, but like they just said that. You know what I mean? Shit. Because I got that crit from Rob Rupel in 2016, I think. He looks at my portfolio and he goes, "Man, this looks very generic." I was like, "What do you want from me, man? Like I'm a child, I'm like learning how to paint here, bro. Like hook it up, And he says, "This is all pretty generic. This one's kind of cool." And he closed my book and handed it back. And I was like, "All right, dude, But we want to establish first is what is generic, right? And what generic is, generally speaking, it's what's really thought of, right? It's like it's already been thought of. It's already been done. It's something that we're very familiar with. So, what is not generic, right? Really, what you're looking for is sorry. Sorry for all the coughs, guys. But what you're looking for is a different way to see something, right? A different way that you can kind of comprehend an idea, a different way that people can understand a design, right? How can you change something that is familiar into a never before seen, I guess, process, or like never before seen result, right? It's something that we're all familiar with, but we haven't seen it done that way before, right? We understand, but there's a limit to that, right? Where it's like whenever you first start, there's always the idea of like, oh, I need to make the most interesting, never before seen thing, right? Because that's what they teach you in school, where it's like they're like, hey, make this thing, and I want to make sure that I've never seen this before, right? Our teachers are always like, oh yeah, make sure no one's ever seen this, make it super original, right? And then they see it and they're like, the fuck is that? Like I don't understand this. You're like, that's what you asked for, man. You know what I mean? Like that's what you wanted. You wanted something that's never before seen. So I made a wheel that's shaped like a square. No one's seen it, And like, how does it work? Sci-fi, you know what I mean? Like, it's usually how it is. And that's in my opinion, that's not the right way to go about things. In my opinion, in my very limited experience opinion, my non-Emmy award winning opinion, it really is designing something that people will understand, right? Right off the bat, but they didn't really think of it that way when if they were to hear the prompt, right? It sounds very vague. It sounds very like, what the fuck are you talking about? But it's a lot of like, trying to design something that people will know based, like, when you see shoes, right? you know how they know, you know how they function. You know, you put a foot in there and it protects your foot, right? Whenever you walk, makes a lot of sense. But how do you design that differently? I was like, what if it's like something that like instead of going on your feet, it goes in your hands? Well, it's not a shoe anymore; it's a glove. You know what I mean? So it's not really. That's not. You know, it might look way different, but it's not a shoe anymore. So you have to think of something that still does the same function, but does it in a different way. And that's how you get a lot of the cooler designs where it's like, you know, when you think of like a cool design, like Daniel Simon's, God, what was it called? The bike in Tron. You know what I mean? Yeah, I'll pull it up. Shit, just look at any Daniel Simon's work. You guys don't know who Daniel Simon is. Yeah, fix your life. There you go. Right? Yeah, when this came out, dude, this was the coolest shit in the world, right? It's like, my God. You know what I mean? Like, that's so sick, doesn't it? It's like, it's just a motorcycle. It's not really that crazy, right? But it looks, it's the same but different. Or same with the, what was it called? Batman motorcycle. There it is. This one, the Bat Pod, the one that kind of like rolls on its side. This one, when we saw that in the movies, like I don't know about you guys. Did you guys lose it when you saw that? When this popped up on screen and he like rolls sideways to go into the truck, you're like, oh shit, you know what I mean? But like when you look at it, it's just a bike. You know what I mean? It's just a motorcycle, and you know how it works, but it does something a little bit different. Right? It has a function, it has a uniqueness to it. There's something about it, right? I'm just talking about props here, but this extends to everything. And like whenever you design something, right, you want it to be recognizable right off the bat, where it's like, oh, okay, I get what that is, right? When you see like anything of Daniel Simon's, to be honest, like when you see this, like what was this from? It's from that one sci-fi movie. But like you look at it, it's like, yeah, it's kind of like a helicopter. You know what I mean? It's kind of shaped like one, right? There's some different kind of thruster mechanics going on here, but generally speaking, right? It's about the same. There's even the tail rudder thing that the helicopters have, right? And it's the same idea. It's a base idea that humans can relate with, right? Because when you create something that's too out there and the audience doesn't get it, you lose them. And now you're like, you're screwed because now your audience doesn't relate with your product, right? But when you hit a design that people are like, oh yeah, I get that. I'm kind of familiar with something like that. But you show them something different with it. Like, dude, that's when you have some good design, right? And so all this to say, right, whenever you're designing and stuff, what I recommend the most is whenever you start designing, think past the physical. Right? Think past like when you see a form language, when you see a form language, don't look at the shapes. I'm looking at this camera, right? We have some like hexagon type shapes, right? Some chamfered edges, cylinders, screws, right? Some like knurled edges, right? Look way past all that and think about the more abstract ideas. Think about the tactileness. How do you draw tactileness? It's a feeling. It's not a sight thing. It's a feeling. It's an intention. How do you draw? How do you draw a old? Right? I mean, you know, there's things that you can draw that look old, but at the end of the day, it's a feeling. It's not really. It's not really I guess an exact thing that you can like put down on paper. You know what I mean? So. It's Rachel, you never took my ENT1 class, right?
Yeah, I was in your ENT one.
You were, okay. So oh yeah, you did Nemo, that's right. So like, you know, for everybody else, like whenever I talked about my form languages, right? There's the physical things that we look at, right? There's the shape languages that we're kind of like working with, right? But then there's also the abstract ideas. And that's what's really going to push you into like the stratosphere. Like when you design something and you think with abstract ideas, dude, it's because you're like, oh, I kind of get that. Like, how do you make this camera with the form language of scared? You know what I mean? It sounds weird, doesn't it? It sounds like, are you high? You know what I mean? Like, are you drunk? Like, it's a camera. How is he scared? You know what I mean? But there's going to be a character associated with this. It's not just a prop. Like I was saying earlier, this is going to be an object that it has a characteristic to it, has a personality, basically, right? And so whenever I design this, I need to show that somehow. And it's like, well, what can I do to make that happen? You know? And that's what you want to be thinking about. That's how you start creating some interesting designs. It's people can relate to it, understand it, and you did it in a very interesting way, you know? Very much like what we're kind of thinking about with the references that I have. Boom. With this snake, this is Ka from the Jungle Book, right? It's a snake. He doesn't have arms. So the design problem here is that I need to be able to make this snake emote, right? I need to make him have human characteristics, because these are all talking animals. So there's a humanistic trait to them, even though they're still full animals. It's not like Zootopia where they have arms and legs like people. They're more humanoid in Zootopia versus here. That's the actual shape of a snake. But I still want him to feel like he's putting his hand over his mouth. He doesn't have hands. I still want him to feel like he's leaning on a basket. He doesn't have arms. You know what I mean? I want this robot to have an emotion, right? They designed all of these shapes to, you know, this feels like a very frail, I don't want to say sad, but very friendly robot, right? It's that downward curve of his like binocular eyes. You know what I mean? Or like, you know, his arms are kind of like laid back on the bench. These are design things in terms of animation, but they're still design cues. And any chance that you get to kind of make someone feel a certain way in a cool, unique way, that's what makes something interesting. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, that's cool.
I know it's very abstract, but that's the thing. That's the hard part. You know, it sounds very like you kind of go in the deep end, but that's why, like, how many of you, and me, this is me included, how many of you have ever like designed something where you're like, dude, this is the coolest shit I've ever seen, and you get like 10 likes on Instagram? Because there's things where like I'll design like, I don't know, something I find like pretty cool, right? Where it's like, oh, dude, there's this really cool weapon I designed, or really cool like thing I designed, and then I put it on Instagram. Like, dude, I'm gonna blow the roof off of this freaking this app, right? 10 likes, you know what I mean? 20, and then it's like some bullshit I did. And I'll, you know, just some random sketch I did, maybe even a demo I did in class. Not that those are bullshit, but definitely a lot less time into those than some of the other designs. And then you get to like thousands. You get like, you know, or hundreds, you know, or whatever your ratio is for your likes to followers. Not that I'm not saying like likes and stuff matter, but what I am saying though is it's odd, right? Because there's times where the audience will really react to something that you do. And you're like, I don't know why they're reacting to that. But then there's something that you find is very cool, where it's like, you know, it's like, I really enjoyed designing this thing. I really think the form language and stuff on this is solid. And they're just like, oh, that's cool, man. You know? And it's something where it's, you know, because generally speaking, the audience doesn't really care about a lot of those things that we as artists kind of care about, you know? They don't really care about like how on point your form language was compared to, you know, I guess like how that uniform kind of works with the rest of that design. You know what I mean? Like it's okay, it's cool, but it kind of goes unnoticed. But it's these feelings, it's these intentionalities that they'll catch on. They don't know why, but they'll feel it, and that's what you're looking for. You know. So whenever you're designing, what you're trying to do is get an emotional response out of your audience, not just form language. You know what I'm saying? And your designs will really capture people's eyes whenever they relate to it, because they know what that is, because they've never seen it before, because it's a design. Technically speaking, they should have never seen it before for any design. But whenever they see it and they get it, they're like, oh, yeah. You know what I mean? Same with like a lightsaber. It's not that crazy. It's a sword. It's a laser sword, right? But people are like freaking out about it, you know, however many years later, right? There's a whole company now that sells lightsabers. And it's cool because, it's a whole thing, but the whole idea behind it, it's very simple, but it's elegant and it's very well done and has a characteristic that really gets people to kind of understand what they're about. You know what I'm saying?
And do you think that also helps with expanding your visual library? Like you mentioned, watching movies helped you with Blue Eye Samurai.
Yeah, like but it has to be relevant. You know what I mean? Like you can't just watch movies and be like, oh yeah, I watched this thing. I watched what is it? I don't know. The Godfather. Cool. Are you doing anything like gangster related right now? No, not really. Then why'd you watch it? You know what I mean? Like it's
so with intention.
Yeah, exactly. So whatever, like let's say you're designing a sci-fi movie, the client, whoever, your art director, whoever, they're always going to be like, oh hey, yeah, we're kind of thinking like Star Wars meets Pocahontas. I don't know. I don't say it like that, but you know what I mean? Like there's always something. There's always like an intention behind it. And for those that haven't worked in the industry before, it's always that. Not Star Wars and Pocahontas, but like it's always like it's like kind of this meets this, this. If there's any standard conversation that we'll ever find in a concept art room, it's that. It's this meets this, right? And you have to know, right? And so whenever you watch these movies, like figure out, like not just like like why it was cool, right? Because if you watch Star Wars and you're like, I really like the lightsaber battles, you're not watching Star Wars. Just want to say it like that. It's not like that. You know what I mean? Like it's, yes, there are fights. Same with Game of Thrones. Like I really like when they fight. It's like, that's not Game of Thrones. I'm gonna put it like that, guys. But if your favorite part about some of these movies is that the action, you miss the point, right? Like if you think One Piece is like a battle shonen, I am sorry to inform you, you are mistaken, right? And it sounds funny where it's like, you're like, oh, I didn't catch that, you know what I mean? But you have to watch it and kind of figure out what these are about. And that's how you kind of start understanding these ideas better, but you got to watch a lot of movies and shows and stuff to kind of start piecing those ideas together. You know what I'm saying? Nice. So let's see. Sorry, this week's a little boring. I know we're kind of starting off the new streams, but I kind of want to we're wrapping up now, so it's supposed to be done at 9, to be honest. But I'm kind of wrapping up here. I'm gonna finish this off on my own. Probably, I mean, there's like 20% left, 10% left, so it's not really much to finish. But at the end of the day, like I am gonna finish this off on my own. I'll kind of show you guys next week on kind of where I normally take something like this. I'd probably take something like probably a little bit further than this. Like you don't have to get every single detail, but you kind of get the general materials right, and you get the general idea there and kind of working, and then we can kind of go from there, right? But the whole point of this, right? The reason that I'm spending a lot of time on this study, and it sounds funny, but it's because I want to put a stupid amount of emphasis on this idea, right? I want you to really understand that this is important. If there's any week that is important in this next 4 weeks for prop design or for just design in general, it's this. Using your references correctly, right? Because a lot of us kind of blow through our references because it's very easy to kind of just grab some pictures and go. You're like, I kind of have some, cool, but at the end of the day, your references kind of make or break your project. And if you want to get good at being a concept artist, getting really good at references is a must, right? Because if you want to be somebody that just kind of paints all day, right? That's great. There's nothing wrong with that. Like illustrators and stuff. Even then, illustrators use references like crazy. But for those of you that are looking to be to get into more leadership roles and understanding how to guide and understand projects on a whole nother level, right? Getting really good at understanding when and where to use your references becomes like the number one thing to get good at. A good art director isn't somebody that is good at painting. It's somebody that has a good vision and that can guide other people to hit that goal, because you're not the only one painting anymore, right? Because you have to tell somebody else how to paint, you know, and they can fully paint, but they don't know what you're thinking, and you have to be able to present that on a page. One of the biggest things I took away from my leads at Netflix was they would set me up with these reference boards that were like, you know, broken down to the T. Like, you're looking at it, you're like, dude, I know exactly what you're thinking, right? Because I've had some clients before where I'm like, what the fuck? Like, you give me like a million images, I still don't know what you're thinking about, right? Because it's not refined, right? And something with PureRef, you know, PureRef is a great program for organizing and stuff. But when it takes you out of the equation of trying to organize your references, that can be very detrimental if you don't know why you're doing it, right? So obviously, if you're using PureRef, keep using it, right? But just be very intentional about it, you know? So with this first week, if you guys are doing the assignments, I just want you to just figure out your idea. We're going to spend one full week, you know, figuring out the idea, and then just do some paintings. We're going to keep it slow. We're going to keep it chill, right? We're gonna shake off the rust. It's a new year, new you, right? We're gonna kind of just get some paintings down, and then just paint and have fun. You know, I just painted a camera, right? It's really not that impressive. Hopefully, with the other two paintings, I kind of make up, like, for those that are watching me for the first time, I can do other stuff, I promise. But spend this first little bit, just paint something, right? Have some fun. Spend this time to really analyze some of these things. Pick objects that you really enjoy, right? Find a prop. So I guess for the homework, right, is we're gonna be doing a prop design. So find a prop that you want to design, right? Whether it's from a project that you've already started. If you want to start a new project, I'm fine with that as well. But whatever it is that you do, you know, just try to find something to design, and then find references that you want to kind of add together. In this case, right, it's going to be this camera that fits in this universe, right? It's going to be with the same reference boards that I've had from the previous weeks, but it's going to be this old camera that's going to that gets possessed by the spirit that the main character gets to use throughout his journey. And then I have my references that I showed you guys earlier, and then I'm going to design something that fits the purposes that we need. I'll show you how I get there in the next couple weeks. But for you, find that prompt, find the intention behind it. You know, what is it supposed to do? Not just function wise, but how's the audience supposed to feel about this, right? If it's a weapon, you know, make it a weapon that your audience wants to play with. You know what I mean? If you're trying to create a prop, make it something like a treasure chest. Make it something that people want to open, right? Because a lot of these things, there's a visceral experience, right? When you see a lightsaber on screen, like, dude, I want that lightsaber. When you see Han Solo's gun, I want that gun. When you have like Cloud's sword, you're like, dude, that's all I'm thinking about. Or Sephiroth. There's different mechanics. Like, I just played Kingdom Hearts over the winter break. And, you know, you just want to have a Keyblade in your hands, you know what I mean? And you just want to, like, swing at shit, you know? It's the same idea with these. Like, how do you get the audience to want to use this? It's not about the form language. It's about the experience, right? What makes you want to use something? What makes you, choose items when you're playing a game, right? Just think about that. For those that are that want feedback, I'll say it again. In my Discord, there's a server shop. You would just join the here, I'll show it up here. Server shop. Join the Livestream Plus. I'll give you feedback 4 to 5 times a week, depending how many weeks are on that month, and then we'll go from there. So, but with that in mind, guys, that's all I got. So, sorry, my voice is kind of weird and coughing a lot, but I've been holding back a cough for the last like 3 hours, so. Unsuccessfully, I might add. But
thank you so much. This Discord is really cool, and I'm gonna be here for the next week and on.
Nice.
Thank you.
No, you're really cool, man. So, but yeah, I mean, you know, for everybody, like, watching is fine. Definitely, you know, I really appreciate you guys watching. But you know, participate, right? And you don't even have to like submit anything if you don't. If obviously if you can't afford the membership subscription stuff, don't worry about it. But just try it on your own, right? You know, there's a lot of notes and stuff kind of being talked about during the stream, and you can kind of follow along. The reason I keep this open like this is because, you know, you can still get the benefits of taking the class without actually getting the feedback, which is, you know, pretty helpful as well. So, but yeah, just things to think about. If you guys have any questions at all, for anybody watching the live streams at any point, right? You know, if you have any questions, ask in the questions channel in the Discord in the live stream category. Sorry. Asking the questions because I get kind of multiple messages a week on like, you know, if they can do certain things or whatever it is. If it's private, you know, ask me privately. But if it is something that I guess is more live stream related, just ask there. That way everybody can kind of benefit from your question as well, or my answers as well, you know. So but cool, guys. I guess that's all I got. So but yeah, any other questions?
I have a question. So we just have to choose the prop, gather the reference, and do studies on it.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And we have to have an intention behind it, like this is going to be part of this sci-fi world or fantasy world, or is it just like getting us started?
So you do have to have some sort of intention, right? I mean, it isn't like I'm not asking for like a full like story prompt based from scratch, right? But you know, like what I recommend for most people, like if you have like a character and you're like, oh, I want a weapon for that person, or if you have an environment, I need like a bridge or like a crane or you know, some sort of turret or something, right? Start from something existing. That's gonna be the absolute easiest, right? But you know, at the very least, have a function and an intention. Like, so for example, this thing's gonna be a turret, and it's gonna be for a first-person shooter that's on the realistic side, like Call of Duty, or it's like a turret for like StarCraft or Hearthstone, right? You can kind of tell the understanding is different for each, like, I guess, style that you kind of go for, right? And then we can kind of work towards the idea. And something I want to emphasize for everybody, this process, right? We don't need 100% of the idea in this first week. We just need 10%. We just need just a little bit to kind of get us going. And then as I give you feedback, we'll kind of be able to refine and adjust from there. Cool.
Real quick as well. Because this is pretty much like gathering ideas. It can be internal and external like worlds, right? So like if I give an example, internal can be like bedroom or kitchen, whereas external can be like a city or town.
Yeah, totally. It's got to be a prop. Yeah, it's got to be a prop, but yeah, it could be for anything. It could be, you know, outside radio tower, right? Or it could be, you know, a coffee maker, you know. Cool.
Props, eh? Alrighty.
Rubik, you gonna say
I have
something?
a question.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, does the study have to be like? I'm not good at painting like from scratch, so I'm better at drawing. So can I just do a drawing study? Because my end goal for the prop is like, for my scenario, it's going to be 3D, like realistic 3D. So
Yeah.
should I
So
do a drawing study?
yeah, if you're more comfortable drawing, absolutely go for it. What I will say, if you're not comfortable painting, I mean, this would be the time to paint. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a study. So at the end of the day, I mean, that's your mileage right there. So up to you. Obviously, do it however you want. But yeah. But also, for anybody that is using 3D, you can use 3D for this step too. You can just build it in 3D. The study is about understanding, right? It's about breaking down the forms and understanding what you're even looking at, right? And you want to like look into it. You know, what does this dial do? What does this button do? How does this whole thing work? Because, you know, I'll talk about it next week when it comes to the exact function of this camera and stuff. But it's something that, you know, I'm very familiar with. I play with vintage cameras a lot. So whenever I'm when I'm looking at this, I understand what every dial does, right? And so for you, it doesn't actually matter what the medium that you choose is. If you draw it, great. If you paint it, great. If you model it, great, right? But just do a study of some sort that helps you break down what you're seeing. It's not about just seeing it, it's about understanding it,
Yeah, sure. Like I'm down to paint, so I think I'll paint it only because I want to, practice paint.
Yeah, and like I was saying, like if for anybody that's like weak at something, right? If there's something that you're not as good at, this week's assignment is like the kind of like warm up one. You know what I mean? So if you're weak at something, address it. You know what I mean? And this is the week where it's like it doesn't really matter. Your studies can kind of turn out to be whatever. So if it's not good, it's just a study. So it's like who cares? But obviously, I'll leave that up to you. This assignment is open to all levels at any progression. So you do it however you want. Even modeling something out for those that aren't comfortable drawing and stuff can be extremely helpful. So, just things to think about. But it's just understanding, really. So cool.
Cool, thanks.
All right, guys. So, yeah, sorry about all the coughs. I tried not to get sick, but someone had other plans for me. But yeah, hopefully by next week we should be good. I'll kind of it won't sound like I'm holding back a cough attack for the rest of this, for the whole stream. So, but yeah, I appreciate all you guys that are watching now and will be watching later. And it's gonna be hopefully it's gonna be a good year. If you ever feel like you want to participate and maybe you kind of watch this a little bit late, just understand every month is going to be a new topic. We'll announce, all the new subjects as we decide them. You'll know before the month starts. I mean, if you're in the Discord or however you find this, you kind of know before then, and hopefully it's gonna be a lot easier for you to jump in. It doesn't really matter what level you're at. I'll adjust accordingly. Yeah, so if you really appreciate what I'm doing, and you kind of want to support, you can join the membership. If you don't have time for that, no worries. I also have a coffee. If you look in the description, you can buy me a coffee as well. Thank you for thank you for everybody that supported me whenever I announced that last time too. So I had like 3 or 4 people send me some coffee. So that was really cool. But yeah, guys, I mean, this is going to be a fun year, hopefully this is a little more approachable. It's going to be I think for me, it's, just trying to make it more accessible to get like high level, I guess, design talk, versus like just learning how to draw boxes all day, if you guys have any suggestions on kind of what you want me to talk about in the future, either type it in the questions or, just kind of hit me up or something. And I can, address the idea in one of the weeks or whatever. So, but yeah, guys, with that in mind, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week. So, peace.
Thank you, Kenny.
Mhm.